When swimming, their curved necks and pointed ears, their wide eyes and expanded nostrils, favour greatly this comparison. At night they seek the shore, and wander several miles over the country, luxuriating among its rank grasses, to within 4 miles of the town of Bagamoyo. The Kingani is 8 miles distant. Their wide tracks are seen. Frequently, if not disturbed by the startling human voice, they make a raid on the rich corn stalks of the native cultivators, and a dozen of them will, in a few minutes, make a frightful havoc in a large field of this plant. Consequently, we were not surprised, while delayed at the ferry, to hear the owners of the corn venting loud halloos, like the rosy-cheeked farmer boys in England when scaring the crows away from the young wheat. The caravan in the meanwhile had crossed safely. Bales, baggage, donkeys, and men. I had thought to have camped on the bank, so as to amuse myself with shooting antelope, and also for the sake of procuring their meat, in order to save my goats, of which I had a number constituting my live stock of provisions. But, thanks to the awe and dread which my men entertained of the hippopotami, I was hurried on to the outpost of the Baluch garrison at Bagamoyo, a small village called Kikoka, distant 4 miles from the river. The western side of the river was a considerable improvement upon the eastern, the plain slowly heaving upwards, as smoothly as the beach of a watering place, for the distance of a mile, until it culminated in a gentle and round ridge, presented none of those difficulties which troubled us on the other side. There were none of those cataclysms of mire and sloughs of black mud and over tall grasses, none of that miasmatic jungle with its noxious emissions. It was just such a scene as one may find before an English mansion, a noble expanse of lawn and sward, with boscage sufficient to agreeably diversify it. After traversing the open plain, the road led through a grove of young ebony trees, where guinea fowls and a hartebeest were seen. It then wound, with all the characteristic eccentric curves of a goat path, up and down a succession of land waves crested by the dark green foliage of the mango, and the scantier and light coloured leaves of the enormous calabash. The depressions were filled with jungle of more or less density, while here and there opened glades, shadowed even during noon by thin groves of towering trees. At our approach fled in terror flocks of green pigeons, jays, ibis, turtle doves, golden pheasants, quails, and moorhens, with crows and hawks, while now and then a solitary pelican winged its way to the distance. Nor was this enlivening prospect without its pairs of antelope and monkeys which hopped away like Australian kangaroos. These latter were of good size, with round bullet heads, white breasts, and long tails tufted at the end. We arrived at Kikoka by 5 p.m., having loaded and unloaded our pack animals 4 times, crossing one deep puddle, a mud sluice, and a river, and performed a journey of 11 miles. The settlement of Kikoka is a collection of straw huts, not built after any architectural style, but after a bastard form, invented by indolent settlers from the Mrima and Zanzibar, for the purpose of excluding as much sunshine as possible from the eaves and interior. A sluice and some wells provide them with water, which though sweet is not particularly wholesome or appetizing, owing to the large quantities of decayed matter which is washed into it by the rains, and is then left to corrupt in it. A weak effort has been made to clear the neighbourhood for providing a place for cultivation, but to the dire task of wood chopping and jungle clearing the settlers prefer occupying an open glade, which they clear of grass, so as to be able to hoe up 2 or 3 inches of soil, into which they cast their seed, confident of return. The next day was a halt at Kikoka. The 4th caravan, consisting solely of Wanyamwezi, proving a sore obstacle to a rapid advance. Maganga, its chief, devised several methods of extorting more cloth and presents from me, he having cost already more than any 3 chiefs together, but his efforts were of no avail further than obtaining promises of reward if he would hurry on to Unyanyembe, so that I might find my road clear. On the 27th, the Wanyamwezi having started, we broke camp soon after at 7 a.m. The country was of the same nature as that lying between the Kingani and Kikoka parkland, attractive and beautiful in every feature. I rode in advance to secure meat, should a chance present itself, but not the shadow of vert or venison did I see. Ever in our front, westerly, rolled the land waves, now rising, now subsiding, parallel one with the other, like a ploughed field many times magnified. Each ridge had its knot of jungle or its thin combing of heavily foliaged trees, until we arrived close to Rosako, our next halting place, when the monotonous waver of the land underwent a change, breaking into independent hammocks clad with dense jungle. On one of these, veiled by an impenetrable jungle of thorny acacia, rested Rosako, girt round by its natural fortification, neighbouring another village to the north of it, similarly protected. Between them sank a valley extremely fertile and bountiful in its productions, bisected by a small stream, which serves as a drain to the valley or low hills surrounding it. Rosako is the frontier village of Ukwe, while Kikaro is the north-westerly extremity of Uzaramo. We entered this village and occupied its central portion with our tents and animals. A kitanda, or square light bedstead, without valance, fringe, or any superfluity whatever, but nevertheless quite as comfortable as with them, was brought to my tent for my use by the village chief. The animals were, immediately after being unloaded, driven out to feed, and the soldiers to a man set to work to pile the baggage up, lest the rain, which during the Masika season always appears imminent, might cause irreparable damage. Among other experiments which I was about to try in Africa was that of a good watch dog on an unmannerly people who would insist upon coming into my tent at untimely hours and endangering valuables. Especially did I wish to try the effect of its bark on the mighty Wagogo, who, I was told by certain Arabs, would lift the door of the tent and enter whether you wished them or not, who would chuckle at the fear they inspired and say to you, "Hi, hi, white man, I never saw the like of you before. Are there many more like you? Where do you come from?" Also would they take hold of your watch and ask you with a cheerful curiosity, "What is this for, white man?" To which of course you would reply that it was to tell you the hour and the minute. But the Mgogo, proud of his prowess and more unmannerly than a brute, would answer you with a snort of insult. I thought of a watch dog, and procured a good one at Bombay, not only as a faithful companion, but to threaten the heels of just such gentry. But soon after our arrival at Rosako, it was found that the dog, whose name was Omar, given him from his Turkish origin, was missing. He had strayed away from the soldiers during a rain squall and had got lost. I dispatched Mabruki Burton back to Kikoka to search for him. On the following morning, just as we were about to leave Rosako, the faithful fellow returned with the lost dog, having found him at Kikoka. End of chapter 5, part 1.